Have you ever looked at Google Maps and just marveled at it? With a few taps, you can see the entire world, zoom in on your own street, and even get directions to a coffee shop on the other side of the planet. It's something we take for granted. But have you ever stopped to think about how we got here? How did we go from crude sketches on clay tablets to the incredibly detailed interactive maps we have today? This is the story of maps, an epic tale of exploration, innovation, and our relentless quest to understand our place in the world. Our journey begins way, way back. Imagine a world without satellites, without compasses, without even a shared understanding of what the world looked like. The earliest known maps weren't about global navigation. They were about immediate survival. One of the oldest examples we've found is the Babylonian map of the world, etched onto a clay tablet around 600 BCE. It doesn't look much like the world we know. It shows Babylon at the center, surrounded by a circular ocean with a few islands scattered around the edges. It was less a tool for travel and more a statement of their worldview, a cosmic diagram placing them at the heart of everything. Early maps were often like this, local, practical, and deeply tied to the culture that created them. They showed hunting grounds, property lines, or sacred sites. They were tools for organizing their small piece of the world. Now, let's jump forward to ancient Greece, where things really started to get interesting. The Greeks were thinkers, philosophers, and mathematicians, and they applied that intellectual rigor to geography. A man named Anaximander is often credited with creating one of the first maps of the known world, based on actual observation and theory, not just mythology. But the real game changer was Ptolemy. Around 150 AD, he wrote a book called Geographia, which was an absolute masterpiece for its time. He introduced the ideas of latitude and longitude, a grid system that we still use today. He gathered information from sailors and travelers to create a surprisingly detailed map of the Roman Empire and beyond. Of course, it wasn't perfect. He miscalculated the size of the Earth, making it seem much smaller, a mistake that would actually inspire future explorers, including a certain Christopher Columbus. Ptolemy's work was so influential that it remained the gold standard for over 1,000 years. The Middle Ages saw a bit of a shift. In Europe, many maps became more symbolic and religious in nature. The T and O maps, for example, depicted the world as a circle divided by a T-shaped body of water, representing Asia, Europe, and Africa, with Jerusalem often placed right at the center. They were less about accurate geography and more about representing a Christian worldview. Meanwhile, in the Islamic world, map-making flourished. Scholars like Al-Idrisi built upon Ptolemy's work, creating incredibly detailed and accurate maps. Al-Idrisi's Tabula Rogeriana, created for King Roger II of Sicily, was one of the most advanced maps of its time, combining knowledge from Arab traders and explorers with classical Greek geography. It was a golden age of cartography that preserved and advanced the science while Europe was in its so-called Dark Ages. Then came the Age of Discovery. This is when everything exploded. The invention of the printing press meant maps could be mass-produced and shared like never before. And with explorers like Columbus, Vasco da Gama, and Magellan sailing into the unknown, the map of the world was being redrawn almost daily. Imagine being a mapmaker in the 15th and 16th centuries. Every time a ship returned, you'd have new coastlines, new islands, and entire new continents to add to your map. It must have been an incredibly exciting and chaotic time. The 1507 walled singular map was the first to label the newly discovered lands America, after the explorer Amerigo Vespucci. Suddenly, the world was a lot bigger than anyone had imagined. Maps from this era are beautiful works of art, often decorated with sea monsters, elaborate compass roses, and illustrations of distant lands. They weren't just navigational tools. They were advertisements for a new world, full of riches and adventure. But exploration also created a huge problem. How do you represent a round 3D sphere on a flat 2D piece of paper? This is the fundamental challenge of cartography. Every flat map distorts reality in some way. In 1569, a Flemish cartographer named Gerardus Mercator came up with a brilliant solution, the Mercator projection. His map preserved the angles and shapes of coastlines, making it perfect for navigation. A straight line on a Mercator map is a line of constant compass bearing, which was a lifesaver for sailors. However, it came at a cost. To make this work, it dramatically distorts the size of land masses as you move away from the equator. This is why Greenland looks as big as Africa on a Mercator map, when in reality, Africa is 14 times larger. This distortion has had a lasting cultural impact, subtly influencing our perception of the relative importance of different countries. As the centuries rolled on, map-making became more scientific and precise. The development of new instruments, like the chronometer in the 18th century, finally allowed sailors to accurately determine their longitude at sea, solving a problem that had plagued mariners for centuries. Governments began funding massive national survey projects, like the Ordnance Survey in Great Britain, to create incredibly detailed maps of their territories for military and administrative purposes. Maps became tools of power, defining borders, claiming territory, and managing resources. The blank spaces on the map, the terra incognita, were systematically filled in through grueling land expeditions and scientific voyages. The 20th century brought another revolution: flight. For the first time, we could see the world from above. Aerial photography provided an unprecedented level of detail, allowing for the creation of topographic maps that showed elevation with incredible accuracy. Then, the Cold War space race gave us the ultimate high ground. In 1957, the launch of Sputnik ushered in the age of satellites. Suddenly, we could map the entire globe, including the oceans, the polar ice caps, and remote mountain ranges, with astonishing speed and precision. This led directly to the development of the Global Positioning System, or GPS. What started as a military project in the 1970s became publicly available in the 90s, and it completely changed our relationship with space and location. The need to read a paper map, to triangulate your position, to orient yourself using landmarks, these skills began to fade as we outsourced our navigation to a friendly voice in our pocket. Which brings us to today. We have the entire world at our fingertips. Services like Google Earth and OpenStreetMap are collaborative marvels, constantly updated by a global community of users and satellites. Maps are no longer static objects. They are living, dynamic data platforms. They can show us real-time traffic, tell us the weather, and even recommend a great place for tacos nearby. They are woven into the fabric of our digital lives. We've come an incredibly long way from drawing on cave walls and clay tablets. The history of maps is the history of us. It's a story of our curiosity, our ambition, our creativity, and our unending desire to understand our world and our place within it. So next time you pull up a map on your phone to find your way, take a moment to appreciate the thousands of years of human endeavor that made that simple act possible. Thanks for watching. If you found this journey through time as fascinating as I did, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the history of how we see our world. See you in the next video.